Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Good afternoon, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. I'm sure that we both watched the Wimbledon final with, and you watched it with A-Dub, and I had to watch at home. I know the breakfast at Wimbledon would have been great, but let's set the stage here. Carlos Alcaraz goes back-to-back against Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest to play the game. It was a close set in the first two sets, and then the third set had some drama. So let's start off with your assessment so far of the impressive win by Carlos. This is already his fourth Grand Slam win in his young career. And Novak Djokovic still has 24 right now. I mean, he did his best, but I think today Carlos was the better player in my mind.
Yeah, so like you said, unfortunately, I missed much of the first set due to breakfast at Wimbledon. I had kitchen duty, making lots of waffles and, getting that ready with the fresh strawberries. And, thank you to Danielle for bringing those nice strawberries over. We kind of settled down and sat down and watched from the second set onward. I did get a glimpse of the very first game of the match. I knew it was going to be tough once Djokovic got broken in that kind of marathon of a game. It was like a 10 or 12-minute first game. Tons of deuces back and forth. But then after that, it was all Alcaraz for the first, for the next 2 3/4 or 2.5 sets, we'll call it, with just, like I said, Djokovic was a little slow to get started, like you said in his post-match comments. He was, he wasn't maybe on his, A game, but all hats off, all credit to Carlos with this one. Just whatever, if Djokovic hit a, decent approach shot or a pretty good rally shot, Alcaraz just had a better answer. Some of these forehands that he would hit on the run for passing shots, the drop shots where he drew Djokovic in, and Djokovic had a pretty good answer, hit the ball deep, and then Carlos with just an amazing topspin lob. He just had answers for everything today, and I think if Djokovic was playing an A- game today, Carlos was A+. He had a few errors, I think, late in the match when he kind of knew things were in his control. And then, obviously we got a little drama at the end when Carlos, he broke easily at 4-all to go up 5-4. He had 3 match points at 40 love, and then Djokovic managed to break back somehow. I put the big old jinx on Carlos. The master jinxer. Carlos managed to give that one away somehow, but then they each held serve, and then in that tiebreaker where we know how tough Djokovic is in tiebreakers, he usually clamps down. He's probably got about a 90% record or close to high 80s% win record of tiebreakers at majors, I would venture to guess. Carlos pulled it out in that tiebreaker, I think 7-5, I want to say. So yeah, just too many answers. His serve was, like we said in the pre-match analysis, his serve had to be good. I don't know what his percentage was, but his serve was solid. He just, never. I don't think he got broken until that very last game at 5-4, and just he broke Djokovic numerous times. Djokovic's net game was a little off today too. Lots of missed volleys, and his net points won was well under 50%. Usually he's probably around 70-80% points won, I would think, because he comes in behind usually pretty, at pretty opportune points in the rallies when he'll approach. And in this match, like I said, Djokovic hit some great approach shots, but Alcaraz is these shots that he hits on the run, these forehands, cross court, just amazing. So, give credit where it's due. Alcaraz 4-0 in his first 4 majors, and he just needs the Australian for the career slam, which is just a matter of when, not if. That'll come. So that's kind of how I saw things. How did you see things in the match today?
I think I was telling somebody about how the match was going to go, at least in the first set, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Alcaraz won the serve and elected to receive, which is very unusual. And the first game was almost like an 11-minute game with multiple chances for each of them to, for Djokovic to hold serve and Carlos to actually break back. And Carlos, was relentless. And when he broke Djokovic in the first game, that's when I think Djokovic probably knew that he wasn't going to be for a long haul, because that would have been a huge win for him if he had actually held the first serve, held his first game. But then once he got broken, and then once Alcaraz rather easily, I mean, there were some of these serves which were 130 miles per hour. And I think yesterday when we were talking about during the pregame, and we were talking about how important Carlos needed to serve, and his first serve percentage was way up in the 70s. But by the time the first set tailed off, I think it was like 65, 66%. But at one point when he was up like 4-2 or things like that, his first serve percentage was 75 to 76%, which is exactly what he was doing. His his technique was very simple: hit a body serve to Djokovic, and then when Djokovic returned, finish off the point on Djokovic's backhand. And it was not even, some of these points were less than 2 or 3 rallies. I mean, that's how quickly he was able to not get Djokovic any kind of rhythm. And you know that you talked about this yesterday, the human backboard. Djokovic gets everything back. I think if you look at the entire match, I think it's probably, I can go and look at the stats. The number of times you had like 20-point rallies, I think maybe one or two. That's it. That's it. So there, I think Carlos was just definitely incredible in every part of the game. He had his serve going. Uh, the shot selection was great. Djokovic, and I do think that his knee injury has something to do with it. There were a few times where I saw Djokovic would return the serve, and Carlos would just load on his forehand, and Djokovic would not even make a move to that. So I think you could see that that kind of bothered him. The fact that he was down, that has something to do with it. That was the first set. The first set was where Alcaraz was completely dominant on his serve. He didn't hit many break points, but the second thing I would say, you already mentioned about the unforced errors that Djokovic had, especially at the net. There were so many times in the first set and second set as well where Djokovic was coming to the net, and every time he came to the net, Alcaraz would hit like a right past him, or Djokovic was making an error. So those two things are not recipe for success in at least the first two sets. The first two sets, I've never seen anybody beat Djokovic. In the last 10 years, I don't think I've seen anybody beat Djokovic that easily. And that's got to do with two things, right? Alcaraz was hitting, I mean, there was one shot he hit like a forehand behind the pole. And Djokovic probably looks at that and says, I can't beat this guy anymore. I mean, that's how great Carlos was. Yeah, and in the third set, you're right, there was an incredible drama. Carlos had the lead once he broke Djokovic, and rather easily, because the one game before that, Djokovic's serve was on point. I mean, he wanted like 40 love, and then you were looking at going to a tiebreaker right away. And then when Carlos broke Djokovic with, I mean, 3 incredible shots. One was, I think, a drop shot. The second one was like, he passed him, and then the third one, I think Djokovic put it in the net. But then once he broke Djokovic and he had a 40 love lead, this is when I'm thinking, all right, put the trophy on Carlos's hands right now. And Djokovic said, not so fast. And it reminded me shades of Roger Federer, but the only difference is that was the fifth set. And in this case, Djokovic still had to not only win this set, but then he had to win the next and then the next. So it was going to be a very tall order for Djokovic anyway. But I think, like I said, it's all crap.
Yeah, no, I like I said, even if Djokovic got that set, you're right. I didn't think he would be coming back in 5 sets. I think it was like you said, tall order, down 2-love against a player of Alcaraz's caliber. I thought, forced it to a tiebreaker. I thought was great after he was down 5-4. Showed some fight. He wasn't going to give up. He got kind of fired up. He got emotional there when he broke back. We kind of said, all right, here we go. We have a match. But then, unfortunately, Alcaraz was just too tough in that tiebreaker, and Djokovic gave him all the credit afterwards. So 2 great champions we saw. The ceremony afterwards was nice. Like as you mentioned before we spoke, Alcaraz going to Djokovic's box first to kind of congratulate them, and then going to his box afterwards. His box has got quite big over the years, I've noticed too. He's got a lot of people now in his box. Used to just be his coach, Juan Carlos, and him. Now it's got quite a team behind him, which a lot of payroll.
Yeah,
you can understand. But yeah, no, like you say, he's 4-0 in 4 majors. And look forward to the U.S. Open next, with these 2 great players. So we'll see.
Yeah, at this point of time, when you look at it almost seemed like the passing of the torch, but I wouldn't call the passing of the torch yet because if you heard what Djokovic said in the post game, I mean, he's 6 weeks removed from a knee surgery. He's got enough time to recover. Obviously, he's got the Paris Olympics coming up, and then right after the Olympics, he's going to have a lot of break, and then he's got a month of August to recoup. And knowing Djokovic, knowing that he desperately wants that number 25, he wants to break that tie with Margaret Court. He wants to get that 25, and that would be even now when we look at it, it was 37 finals, and
Yeah.
I mean nothing wrong in losing to a player like Alcaraz. And I mean, when we both talked about the path to the final, Alcaraz has had very tough matches he played. He played Tiafoe 5 sets, Humbert 4 sets, Tommy Paul 4 sets, Medvedev 4 sets, and while Djokovic, he had easy. I mean, not to say that Djokovic wouldn't have beaten some of the top players in the league. He was just not battle tested like Alcaraz was, and I think that I would definitely attribute two things. Right, one is definitely Carlos's level of play was so high. I think it was way higher than what he was playing in Wimbledon last year, way higher even than the French Open. I mean, on a different court, it was very high today the way he played. And then Djokovic making some very uncharacteristic, unforced errors, and even in the tiebreaker where he was not on point. I do have one trivia question for you because we have to throw this to our Pete Sutmeyer. Only 6 men in the Open era have won both Roland Garros and Wimbledon in the same. So you're looking at, so that's of course Alcaraz is one of them. So name the other 5.
Wow, in the same year, you're saying, right? Wow. All right. In the Open era, we got to go with Labor was
Yep,
one. Right?
you got it.
Labor
You got it.
was one.
Yeah,
Labor will check off. I'm going to go with Borg two.
you got it.
I would say Connors. Jimmy Connors 3.
No, no.
No. So we got Borg, Laver.
Alcaraz.
Sampras won the French one time, and he won a ton of Wimbledon. So I'll go with Sampras as a guess.
No.
Not in the same year, huh? He won the. Wow, it's a tough one.
I
Borg.
thought you would get this rather easily.
Yeah, no, I gotta think a little bit here. I'm trying to think. Well, obviously, you said 6, so Carlos counts as one of those, but that's obvious. That's today, so that's,
Yeah.
Carlos is one of those. So there's 1, 2, 3. We got 3 more to go. Gotta do some thinking here. I'm trying to think. Oh, Mats Wilander.
No.
No, jeez, it's really.
You're 0 for 3 right now. You're 3
Yeah.
for 6. You're 3 for 6.
Same year. How about
I'll give you a hint.
Federer and Rafa?
There you go. They're the obvious ones. One more.
But I didn't think they were, yeah, because Rafa won Wimbledon like twice, right? And then every
Yeah.
French. And Federer probably won the French once, right? Once
Yeah.
or twice. So one more we're still missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We said Borg. Johnny Mack, did he win in the same year?
Man, I can't believe you're missing this
One? Djokovic.
Yes, exactly.
Serious.
You're
Well,
missing.
this is going way back. So for the three great ones now, plus Labor and Borg. All right, Labor and Borg.
I was very surprised that I thought you would nail the Alcaraz and Djokovic as 1 and 2, and then I thought you would have more trouble with Laver or even Federer because Federer
Either won the Grand Slam, so we know that. Yeah, we figured that was obvious. And Borg, he was a great for a short amount of time. So
yeah,
but I thought maybe Johnny Mack did it once, and but I was thinking great players going back. But well, Federer, Rafa, Djokovic, all in the same year. That's right.
Yeah, and then there was another stat they were talking about. Playing the same player 2 or 3 times back to back, and what was their record? Like I think Federer did against Roddick. I think Edberg and Becker played 3 in a row. I didn't realize that. I think Borg and Connors, Borg and McEnroe maybe, but then Nadal and Federer, Federer and Djokovic. So these are some of them who played back to back in the same tournament. So that I thought this was a good trivia when I saw that. I thought this was something that. I would like to post it to PSAT, and I want to see if he gets it because we dedicated this trivia in his name, in his honor.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is where we are. So 2 for Carlos this year, 1 for Sinner. Right now, the count is, this is exactly how the rivalry was born between Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, when 3 players won 20 each, more than 20 each.
Yeah.
Now, Carlos has a 4-1 lead over Sinner. Can Sinner win the next one to kind of close the gap on the new one? And I mean, I would definitely like to see that. I think there are 2 great ambassadors to the sport. I especially love the way Djokovic. I mean, he's not ready to pass the torch. As someone asked me, this is the passing of the torch, and I said, Djokovic is too great of a champion not to pass the torch. And I also like the fact what Carlos said was a very good interview in the center court. And they asked him again. Chris McHenry asked him again, saying, "You said you're not a champion yet," and he said, "Well, there are people like Sampras, Borg, Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer who have won like multiple majors, 14 and 15. I'm not even close there." And that's a very good thing of if he can keep up. Again, it's not a sure bet, but if there's anybody who can do it, I think that the tennis is in great hands. And I do like to see the Djokovic and Carlos matchup in the U.S. Open. I think that'll be for the ages, I think.
Yeah, and to think about it, just think how remarkable what these 3 greats have done is. I mean, Carlos is so great, and we already won 4. But to get to Djokovic's level, or even Federer, he's got to win 16 to get to Federer and 20 to get to where Djokovic is. So when you think about that, it's just extraordinary. We might be talking about him along with those great 3, in about 12, 13 years from now, and very well could be. But it's just remarkable to think he's got to win 20 more to still get to Joker's level, and so yeah. But we'll see. It'd be great if he stays good for a very long time.
Yeah. And I'm going to post that in our group chat, so we'll see if PSAT and ADUB can get it. So, all right, then I think that pretty much puts the wrap on the grass court Grand Slam of the year. We do have, like you said, golf, and then I know the Scottish Open is going on with Adam Scott currently leading at 16 under. Looks like it. I'm just looking at the scores here, but we'll see once we get to the next tournament in golf, which is the British Open. So I think is it the Troon?
Yes, Troon is. I think it's at Troon, I believe. Correct.
Yes, right. So looking forward to that, and we'll figure out a time and date for that. But for now, the tennis is over. Carlos is now the man. He's won 4, and Djokovic is at 7, and still got 1 more to go. I think he'll be back next year to beat that Federer or equal the Federer record. So I'm pretty sure of that. So, all right. Thank you, Dan. Have a good day.
Good.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Primo and Dan will be back soon.